Welcome back to the Runaround, brought to you as always by Holabird Sports here on ESPN 1300 AM. If you want great customer service for all of your running needs, check them out at holabirdsports.com. Once again, that's Holabird Sports. We're on the phone with Frank Zarnowski. He's the head of the Decathlon Association, and he said he's been traveling back and forth between Maryland and Eugene, Oregon to plan for the 100th anniversary celebration of the Olympic Decathlon. Frank, you're on the Runaround. How's it going?
Well, Greg, first of all, thanks for having me. It's hectic, but it's going fine.
So this sounds interesting. I did not know about this until a couple weeks ago. There's going to be a celebration honoring the Decathlon and 100 years since Jim Thorpe's big performance.
Yeah, right. You only get to be 100 once. And so a couple of years ago, we had the idea that we'd like to bring back all the living Olympic champions and have them as part of the U.S. Olympic trials. And so on June 22nd and 23rd, the first 2 days of the trials in Eugene, those are the days of the decathlon. The opening ceremonies will consist of some ceremonies with the living Olympic champions, Rayford Johnson and Milt Campbell, and Bruce Jenner and Bill Toomey and Dan O'Brien. One of the champions, the actually defending champion from Beijing, will be on the field competing. He'll try to make his third Olympic team. That'll be Brian Clay. But we thought that would be kind of a nice way to kind of touch off the trials and to honor all the success that we've had over the last century.
So how much planning has this taken?
A lot. The planning and the organization is being done by the Oregon Track Club. So they're doing that. What the celebration is two or three pronged. First they're bringing back the living Olympic champions to honor them, and then what the university has done is they've given us the art museum. So we're going to have some historic displays at the art museum throughout the trials, which is going to last about 10 days, which will depict the history of the American decathlon since 1912, and we've had considerable success there. So that's part of my involvement. I'll announce the trials, the decathlon as well, but right now I'm going back and forth trying to help them get these displays ready so that the public can come in and see how much success we've had.
So what's it like going from, and you're from Emmitsburg, correct?
Well, I live in Emmitsburg. I teach at Dartmouth College in Hanover, New Hampshire, but I've taken the year off to finish a couple books. I finished writing a couple books, so I just finished that, and I needed the time to prepare for the trials, and we actually have a corollary celebration in Germany a month later with the USA-German dual decathlon meet in Marburg. We're also going to have a celebration there, and that's being run by the Interior Department of Germany. The federal government is actually sponsoring that celebration. It's the same kind of thing where they're going to bring back all the as many of the Olympic medalists as they can get to Marburg. So the celebration, in a sense, is actually going to last about a month. It's going to start in Eugene with the U.S. Olympic trials, and then end in Marburg, Germany a month later. That'll be July 20th and 21st with the USA-German dual meet that we have every year.
So that would be before the actual London Games, correct?
Yeah, actually, the way it's scheduled, and we get a great deal of cooperation with the German team, but we'll take the American decathletes who make the Olympic team to Marburg and use that as a training center in preparation for the London Games. Then they'll go directly to London, and the Games will open, I don't know, something like 10, 12 days later, and the decathlon is an early part of the Games. So, they're going to spend maybe 2.5 weeks in Marburg training, but the idea is to provide a training center in Europe for the people who we think have chances to get medals, and we have a number of terrific decathletes, including the defending champion. So we wanted to make things as easy as possible for them to make the transition, be in the same time zone, and so on, and as well have our dual meet with the German team.
Frank, do you find that more people are becoming involved in decathlon as time goes on here?
You mean as athletes?
Yes.
That's a good question. I mean, I know a lot of the numbers now because I've just finished a record book. But as late as the 1960s, there were no more than a half a dozen to a dozen meets a year, and the decathlon was for most Americans a once every 4-year thing. And you tried to make the Olympic team and make a little reputation, but in the late 1960s, the collegiate people began to talk about this, and in 1969, the NAIA took the lead and made the decathlon part of their national championships, and the NCAA did so a year later in their 2 divisions, and now they have 3 divisions, divisions 1, 2, and 3. And so as soon as the decathlon became part of the collegiate scene and became a national championship event, a college championship event, the event took off in numbers. And so instead of having, for example, 10 meets a year, we now have about 250 decathlon meets a year. Every collegiate conference has it. Every relay meet has a decathlon. And so there's no problem for an athlete to find a decathlon. From the early ages, where if you're like a high school sophomore or junior, you have junior Olympic programs. A dozen states have a state championship in the event, all the way to, I mean, there are people who are 90 years old who are competing in these masters and veterans decathlon. So there's a lot of opportunity now that didn't exist before it became a real popular event. And then, of course, the success that we've had in recent years with Dan O'Brien and Brian Clay winning Olympic gold medals has just kind of stoked the fires. We also had a couple of guys who won world championships, like Tom Pappas and Trey Hardy, and a guy who won a world indoor championship a month ago, Ashton Eaton. So we got an awful lot of interest in the event, and there's probably 2,000 to 3,000 collegiate and post-collegiate athletes who consider themselves decathletes, and another 2,000 high school kids who try it at least once a year at the junior Olympic level or the state level.
Frank, you brought up of course, the World Indoor Championship from Ashton Eaton, who was on the show just a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
What do you think of a guy like that, his chances for this year? Not only obviously.
I think his chance for a medal is great, absolutely great. It's the color of the medals that I'm just not so sure of. We will go in, assuming everybody is healthy, we may go in with the top 3 favored people. We have the defending champion in Brian Clay, although he's pushing the envelope in an age sense right now, but he's been doing terrific workouts. He's in pretty good shape, and he'll go back as the defending and 2-time champion and 2-time medalist. We have the defending and 2-time world champion in Trey Hardy, although he's coming off some elbow surgery, but he's way ahead of rehabilitation right now, so he's going to be one of the favorites. He won in Daegu, Korea last summer. And then Ashton Eaton is the youngest of those 3, and he had a terrific indoor season, set another world record, and won a world indoor championships in the indoor counterpart, the heptathlon. So if things go right, and we just keep our fingers crossed, and we never want to use the word sweep, but I think that we have a chance for a number of medals in London, and the color of the medals to any one individual will just depend upon what kind of day they have, or what kind of 2 days they have. But there's no doubt that we're on kind of an upswing in terms of our success and the rest versus the rest of the world. So I think in terms of your question about Ashton Eaton, I think there's no doubt that he is a definite medal threat, and I don't think anybody would contest that. It's just that will he be able to beat 2 other guys who are just as good? It's a nice situation to be in, where you have maybe the top 3 people in the world.
Right, and I want to ask you about that, or I'm glad you brought that up, Frank, because I was going to ask you, what do you think of the possibility of a sweep? Really, this is a special year, 2012, not only because of the 100-year anniversary, but also because, like you said, the American decathletes are on the up and up. But this has really been an event that American athletes have really done well in historically.
I never talk about sweeps. The chance that you can't ever promise a sweep. I mean, could the Cardinals promise that they would win the World Series a year ago? Once they were down to their final strike. You never promise sweeps. In 100 years, there have only been 2 sweeps in the Olympic decathlon, both by American teams. One was in Germany in 1936 at Berlin, and the other one was in Helsinki in 1952. But it's awfully difficult to sweep, and you don't know if some other country is going to come up with some kind of wonder kid who will knock your socks off. You just don't know. But I know people are talking about it, and I try to downplay it, and you keep your fingers crossed behind your back that something like that would happen. It would be a wonderful way to cap off a birthday celebration, to go 1, 2, 3, but you don't want to talk about it, and you certainly don't want to promise it, because if you do, it'll be like promising like we did in 1992, Dave or Dan to be settled in Barcelona, and neither one. Neither one of them won. So you don't want to build up the expectations, and then if you only win 2 medals instead of 3, people will believe that you weren't so successful. So I don't talk about sweeps. You put that under the pillow and you hope, but you never talk about it.
Well, I didn't say you were promising a sweep. I just want to say that the prospects were exciting. And then you mentioned Trey Hardy in the World Championships last year.
Yeah.
One thing to remember is that Ashton Eaton was second right behind him, so they did get 1-2 in the World Championships last year. So that is exciting. So having that trio.
It is. And Trey hurt his elbow on his last throw in the javelin, and he came right back and had Tommy John surgery on his elbow, and he's actually training really well. The doctors are not giving him the go-ahead yet to start throwing, but he's running great and he's jumping pretty well. And right now, not being able to use his right elbow is just limiting him in the 3 throws and the pole vault. But he ran a PR over the weekend at the Texas Relays and the hurdles. He ran 13:61. So I mean, he's really serious. I talk to him maybe once a week. He's ahead of schedule in terms of being able to go out there and start throwing again. But coming off Tommy John surgery is kind of tricky, and so he's being very, very careful about that. And he had a great meet in Daegu, maybe with the exception of the pole vault, but he just plastered the world. And so by all rights, if he wasn't injured, he would go into London as a favorite because he'd be the reigning world champion. But the elbow surgery has left a little bit of doubt in some people's minds. I don't doubt that he'll be ready to go, though.
Do these decathletes work together, train together? It seems like a sport where the camaraderie and working together would really benefit all of them.
Yeah, it used to be that way in 2 senses. Once back in the late 1960s, guys like Bill Toomey and Russ Hodge trained together in Santa Barbara when there was a national coach, or a veritable national coach, a guy named Sam Adams, and he literally invited people to come to Santa Barbara. He was the coach at UCSB and train there, and so we kind of had kind of an informal program. In the 1990s, we actually had a formal program that was sponsored by Visa, and it lasted about 10 years, where we had a national coach, and that was Harry Mara, and he is now Ashton Eaton's coach up in Eugene, and we would bring the best guys together a couple times a year and bring in the best coaches, nutritionists, psychologists, anybody we thought needed them, and Visa underwrote that, and it was a terrific program, and those have been the only 2 times where we've actually had a formal program to get guys together. If they do get together and train, now they're doing it on their own. For example, the 2010 national champion is a guy named Jake Arnold, who made Tucson, Arizona his training base because he had graduated from the University of Arizona about 5 years ago. But he has just moved to Azusa, California, and now he trains with Brian Clay. And you do need a training partner, and sometimes that's a problem because, if you're that good, if you're the best in the world, people can't keep up. Now, Trey Hardy has, they've actually done something really good with Trey Hardy. Last year's NCAA indoor champion was a guy from Clemson named Miller Moss, and he graduated from Clemson, and he has moved to Austin, Texas, to train with Trey Hardy, and he's a big-time talent. And so both Clay and Hardy have really sound, legitimate training partners. The guy who doesn't have a training partner is Ashton Eaton, and I think it would be helpful if he had somebody, just to go out and run with. Although it'd be very hard for anybody to keep up with him as a runner, because his running events are literally spectacular right now.
Well, Frank, I'll tell you what, it's an exciting year nonetheless, and we want to thank you for joining us here on the Runaround, and we wish you the best of luck in planning all this, and
I appreciate
with the
it.
Olympic trials coming up, so we'll be glad to help you out with all that.
Yeah, get back
soon.
to me if you want to do this again, Greg. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Absolutely, Frank. Take care.
Take care,
Thank
Frank.
you.
All right, and coming up, we have Ryan here for another reason. We're going to talk about recruiting runners to run races locally. Is it for better or is it for worse? Call us up, 410-481-1300. We want to hear your opinion.
Northbound lanes of 795 between the Beltway and Owings Mills Boulevard. Report of an accident.